Roughly speaking, I have lived in Serbia for 9 months and Albania for 4.5 months. In Serbia, I have lived in Belgrade, the capital, and Novi Sad, the second largest city in terms of population. I have also visited the third largest city in terms of population, Niš, and one small city. In Albania, I have only lived in Tirana, the capital, but I have been to a smaller city with a historical site. For the most representative comparison, let us focus on the two countries' capital cities. I was a long-term tourist in both countries, so my views will come from a touristic standpoint most of the time. So let us first start talking about tourism. Belgrade, Serbia definitely packs a punch in the tourism department. It is very convenient that the main pedestrian street, Knez Mihailova, leads straight to the gorgeous Kalemegdan fortress with breathtaking views of the other side of the city, New Belgrade, and at least one river. New Belgrade is like an entirely different city, including businesses to sprawling apartment blocks and more. Otherwise, the center of Belgrade is connected to other interesting neighborhoods that are jam-packed with gorgeous buildings as well as parks. I would suggest spending at least 1 week in Belgrade. Tirana, Albania has its own touristic perks as well. The main square, Skanderberg, is quite a crucial point in the center that leads to many interesting parts of the city. It is so central that even locals seem to cross through it to get to places faster. Otherwise, it is very convenient that there are interesting places to see right at the square, such as the museum, and if you walk within the proximity of the square, you can find some interesting things to see as well. While there are not as many diverse neighborhoods as you slightly depart from the city center, Tirana has some interesting bunkers, some of which you can visit. I would suggest spending at least a weekend in Tirana. When it comes to malls, Belgrade has many state-of-the-art malls, but what steals the show is the new Galleria Mall that is open but still a work in progress. It is conveniently situated in the center and almost combined with the Belgrade waterfront. Tirana, on the other hand, has nice malls as well, with the star of the show being the Tirana East Gate, although a bit far from the center. Regarding events, both cities do have events, but Belgrade may be more happening when it comes to events that are from regular meetups to language clubs. Regardless, I remember attending a tourist meetup in Tirana and having a good time. If you would like to take a day trip, it is very convenient that Novi Sad, Serbia, is about an hour or so by bus from Belgrade. Novi Sad is no slouch. It packs so much that it could be a capital itself. In fact, many Serbs and maybe even some tourists may prefer this city over the capital, Belgrade, but each has its own flavor, and I would argue that Belgrade has much more in comparison, but Novi Sad has some elements that Belgrade may not have. There are other cities that are accessible by bus within an hour or so, and other cities, including those in other countries, are reachable within the same day. Cities in other countries include Budva and Kotor in Montenegro, Sarajevo in Bosnia, Zagreb in Croatia, Skopje in Macedonia, Sofia in Bulgaria, Bucharest in Romania, and so on. It is worth noting that Belgrade's bus station is quite convenient and diverse in its options. Tirana's buses, on the other hand, seem to be scattered in one parking lot that is a bit of a walk from the center, but there are also buses in the center itself from what I've seen. I can talk about my experience taking a bus to a nearby city, which was fairly convenient. Go south and you will reach the resort coastal city of Saranda, very close to Greece. Greece, Macedonia, Kosovo and Montenegro are quite close to Albania. What about accommodation? Both cities have affordable and fancy hotels, but I usually book apartments through Airbnb and Booking, so I can talk about my experience using those websites for apartments. You are looking at $20 or less a night for some nice central apartments, especially if you get the monthly discount. In fact, this is a good chance to mention that prices overall in both cities seem to be somewhat equal, and even the currencies are very similar in value at about 100 units per dollar. One thing that I noticed in Tirana, however, is that the interiors of buildings are colder during the winter without a heater on, and things may take longer to get fixed. About jobs, I've worked remotely in both cities, so I never had to research the job market. However, from what I've seen, Belgrade seems to be relatively thriving with both Serbs, expats, and nomads who work remotely but choose to do it in Belgrade. In Tirana, I met some foreign teachers teaching in the city, but the same probably applies to Belgrade. Otherwise, if you are looking to maximize your experience in both cities, getting a good online income from abroad would be fantastic, as you would likely be living well above the local means in both cities that are quite affordable. About language, Serbian is the spoken language in Belgrade. Yes, there may be a Belgrade accent, and you will likely hear some other accents if you are savvy. The reason is because Belgrade seems to be a melting pot of Serbs from other cities, as well as former Yugoslavian compatriots, such as Montenegrins, Bosnians, and Croatians. But you will possibly come across Montenegrin the most after the Belgrade accent or general Serbian accents. Text is written sometimes in Latin letters, sometimes in Serbian Cyrillic. English proficiency is quite high, even among the elderly sometimes. Otherwise, a second or third language I came across several times was Russian, due to three primary reasons. Some high schools offer it as a taught language. Serbs have an affinity with Russia, and the proximity of Russian to Serbian or Slavic languages makes it easier for Serbs to learn the language. Serbian is a quite useful gateway language to learn similar Slavic languages such as Macedonian, Bulgarian, and so on. In Tirana, Albanian is spoken, and other languages include English, of course, and Italian, partially due to the proximity to Italy. Otherwise, the English situation is quite close to Belgrade, but it might be a little less prevalent among the youth compared to Belgrade. Albanian uses Latin letters with a twist here and there. You might hear the Kosovar accent in Tirana. Albanian is a language of its own kind, although there are some English-sounding words sometimes. Outside of Albania, Albanian would be useful to communicate with the majority of the population in Kosovo, as well as pocket communities in countries like Macedonia, Italy, and even Canada. It is unlikely that religion will have an effect on your experience in either city, but it could be interesting to observe nonetheless. In Belgrade, you will likely come across Serbian Orthodox Christians and their churches, with the occasional Muslim here and there. Otherwise, there is a significant population with no religion as well. Tirana has Christians in churches as well, Muslims and their mosques, and there are people without a religion as well. What about the people themselves? Belgraders to me are tall, specifically the men. I am a tall gentleman myself, and I constantly feel overshadowed by Serbs traversing the cityscape even if they are a decade my junior. Otherwise, Serbs in general can range from more Slavic, fair-skinned, to very Mediterranean looking. The younger generations seem to be quite slim and athletic. Serbs are social and charismatic. In Tirana, while there are tall gentlemen, there are quite a lot of short people too, and I have noticed an interesting phenomenon in which some people seem to have torsos and lower bodies that are almost the same length, instead of their legs being longer than their upper body. Regarding features, although Albanians do not necessarily look like Serbs, there is a similar case here of seeing people that are blonde with blue eyes, as well as darker people that can easily blend in if in countries like Turkey or even some Arab countries. One thing I would like to mention, however, is that I believe that young Albanian ladies roughly my age are the most beautiful in the world. Well, that is at least compared to the other countries I've been to, and I've been to some world-renowned destinations in the beauty department, such as Ukraine. The reason I talk about people in this video is because I believe that just like we go to countries to see nice buildings, gorgeous nature, and so on, we can also enjoy observing how different people may look compared to us. About food, I cannot really comment too much on this subject because my diet is stricter than average, but I am sure that the restaurants can be tasty, and I enjoy the diversity of the groceries. In both cities, there are local and foreign supermarkets. The foreign supermarkets that catch my eye are usually German. Even about nightlife, I do not have a lot of insight. I do not frequently partake in nightlife activities, but I am sure that both cities pack some lit joints. And both cities seem to like the turbo-folk music that is essentially lyrical electronic music, sometimes with folk music elements. I think I read that Belgrade was voted somewhere as the #1 party destination in all of Europe, especially with its splavs, or clubs overlooking the river. Anyway, although I am past my turbofolk phase, some turbofolk music is sophisticated and advanced in its musicality that Western electronic and even hip-hop musicians, such as in the US, can actually take some notes. Regarding safety, both cities are safe, and I have walked alone at night countless times without a single dent. However, outside the almost non-existent crime, Tirana does seem to be more earthquake-prone, although I have not experienced anything more serious than a slight rattle. Both cities seem to have all 4 seasons, with summers being rather hot and winters sometimes being snowy. But nothing crazy, meaning no Middle Eastern hot summers and no freezing Siberian winters, at least most of the time. Rainfall is not uncommon. As for the verdict, pound for pound, I would say that Belgrade has more to offer than Tirana. But the two cities offer such different aspects that I would easily believe it if someone prefers Tirana over Belgrade or Albania over Serbia in general. Especially if that person is more fond of the Albanian language. I say that because language is a priority for me when I choose to live somewhere, and I like the Serbian language and its music. Nowadays, particularly former Yugoslavian rock. Needless to say, Belgrade is my favorite of the two cities. But there is a reason I have stayed in Tirana for more than 4 months and counting. I urge all of you to visit both cities as they are quite close to each other and interesting to see. I actually took a plane from Belgrade straight to Tirana recently, and maybe you should too.